Good evening. The regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for September 10th, 2024 is called to order at 6 p.m. We do have President Singh participating via telephone conference, so all of the votes today will be done via roll call votes. With that, we will take attendance first. Trustee Cervantes? Present. Trustee Kirfan?
Here.
Trustee Mailing? Trustee Sellers?
Here.
Trustee Solis?
Here.
President Singh?
Here.
And I am also present. We move on to adoption of the agenda. What are the wishes of the board on the agenda?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Cervantes. I heard a second by Trustee Sellers. We will do a roll call vote. Trustee Cervantes?
Yes.
Trustee Kirfan?
Aye.
Trustee Sellers?
Yes.
Trustee Solis?
Yes.
President Singh?
Yes.
And I will also register a yes vote. Motion carries. Next item, we will take any comments from the public on our closed session items. If there is any member wishing to address the board on any of the closed session items, if you are in person, please come forward now. If you are watching remotely, the number to dial is 559-276-3150. We will allow 30 seconds to pass before we adjourn to closed session.
Thirty seconds have passed and we have no calls at this time.
Thank you. Hearing no comments or calls on our closed session item, we will now adjourn to closed session and return to open session at 7 p.m. or as soon as thereafter. The board reconvenes to open session. As a reminder, we do have President Singh participating telephonically, so any votes today are taken or were taken via roll call vote. Items to report from closed session. The board unanimously approved the certificated personnel report. A motion was made by Trustee Cervantes and a second by Trustee Kerfan. The board also unanimously approved the classified personnel report. A motion was made by Trustee Sellers and a second was made by Trustee Cervantes. Before I move on to our next item, just as a reminder for those that are in the audience or anyone watching us remotely, if you wish to provide a comment on any item not on the agenda, there are note cards in the back that you can complete to let us know that you're here. Otherwise, just make sure you come forward when we take public comments. If your comment is related to one of the items on the agenda, please wait until that item is called and we will hear your comment. The number to dial for telephonic comments is 559-276-3150. And with that, we will proceed with our Pledge of Allegiance. If we can please have Trustee Sellers lead us.
Please stand. Ready? Salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now invite our interpreter translators to provide our community engagement information. We will first hear from Nora Ceballos and then from Manjandir Sekhan.
Good evening. If you wish to address the board, call 559-276-3150 or fill out a request form provided at the table near the entrance and submit it to the clerk on the board before the meeting. If you wish to speak on an item on the agenda, please do so when the item is called. If you wish to speak on an item not on the agenda, you may speak during the public comments section of the agenda. Si desea dirigirse a la mesa directiva, llame al número 559-276-3150 o complete un formulario de solicitud provisto en la mesa cerca de la entrada y preséntelo al secretario de la mesa directiva antes de la reunión. Se permitirán comentarios públicos relacionados con los temas de la agenda cuando se llame el tema. Los comentarios públicos sobre un tema que no está en la agenda se permitirán durante la sección de comentarios públicos de la agenda. The district welcomes other language speakers to the board meetings. Anyone planning to attend and needing an interpreter for a language other than Spanish and Punjabi should call 559-274-4700, extension 10150 by noon on the Friday preceding the board meeting, or at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting, so arrangements can be made for an interpreter. El distrito da la bienvenida a las personas que hablan otros idiomas a las reuniones de la mesa directiva. Cualquier persona que planifique asistir y necesite un intérprete para un idioma que no sea español y punjabi, llame al 559-274-4700, extensión 10150, el viernes antes de la reunión y antes del mediodía, o por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión para poder hacer los arreglos para la interpretación. Thank you.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੋਰਡ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਬੋਧਿਤ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ 559-276-3150 ਤੇ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ ਜਾਂ ਐਂਟਰੀ ਦਰਵਾਜ਼ੇ ਦੇ ਨੇੜੇ ਟੇਬਲ ਤੇ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਗਏ ਇੱਕ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਫਾਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਭਰੋ ਅਤੇ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਬੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਕਲਰਕ ਕੋਲ ਜਮ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਰੋ। ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਏਜੰਡੇ ਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਤੇ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਏਜੰਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਸ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਦੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਆਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸਾਂਝੇ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਏਜੰਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਤੇ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਏਜੰਡੇ ਦੇ ਜਨਤਕ ਟਿੱਪਣੀ ਸੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਅਜਿਹਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਸਾਡਾ ਜ਼ਿਲ੍ਹਾ ਬੋਰਡ ਦੀਆਂ ਮੀਟਿੰਗਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਰ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਬੋਲਣ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਜੇਕਰ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਯੋਜਨਾ ਬਣਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਸਪੈਨਿਸ਼ ਜਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਲਈ ਟਰਾਂਸਲੇਟਰ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਬੋਰਡ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸ਼ੁੱਕਰਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਦੁਪਹਿਰ ਤੱਕ ਜਾਂ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟੋ ਘੱਟ 48 ਘੰਟੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 559-274-4700 ਐਕਸਟੈਂਸ਼ਨ 10150 ਤੇ ਕਾਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ ਤਾਂ ਜੋ ਇੱਕ ਟਰਾਂਸਲੇਟਰ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ।
Thank you both. We move on to item I, presentations on our agenda. We invite our Central High Student Body Representative, Manat Dhaliwal. Did I say that correctly? Mali Dhaliwal.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is Manit Dhaliwal, and I am the Associated Student Body President at Central High School. It is my honor to be speaking here tonight to update you all on what has been happening at Central High School in these past few weeks. During the start of the school year, we have welcomed many new students to our campus. One of the highlights was our Week of Welcome rally that was held on Friday, August 16th, which greatly boosted school spirit. The high enthusiasm among our students on campus led to our new spirit shirts selling out almost immediately. Club Day was a success on our campus as many expanded their horizons to join clubs such as CSF, NAMI, FCCLA, SHSS, eSports, Interact, Photo Club, and we have added some new clubs like Pickleball, Environmental Club, Bhangra Club, and others. Homecoming is next month on October 18th, and this year's theme is the Grizzly Channel, which celebrates the classic teen movies that we all grew up watching. Freshmen will be Lemonade Mouth, sophomores will represent Camp Rock, juniors will be Teen Beach Movie, and seniors will feature everyone's favorite High School Musical. We are preparing for this event, and we are optimistic about its success. We have 4 students in FFA receiving the American Farmer degree, which is considered the highest degree you can achieve from the FFA. Logan Wood is a finalist for the National Ag Maintenance and Repair Proficiency Award, and Mr. Chris Williams is being awarded with an honorary American Farmer degree. Next week, we are excited to host our annual Kindergarten Pumpkin Patch, welcoming kindergarteners from many of our Central Unified Elementary schools to our school. Furthermore, FFA recently participated in 2 sectional activities with the other 13 schools in the West Fresno Madera section. Our students are showing their claws, passing their classes, and you should see how clean they are keeping our campus. We are confident that even better things are to come. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. Next, we invite a student body representative from Pershing Pathway, Yari Flores.
Good evening, Board, Vice President Calleria, members, boards of trustees, and Superintendent Ms. Davis. My name is Yalisa Flores, and I'm the president of Fresno Pershing FFA chapter and Pershing's High School Associate Student Body. We have started off this year great with many highlights and events so far. At the end of July, our Fresno Pershing officer team participated in Pershing's first summer retreat in at least 10 years. We worked on team building, professionalism, and planning numerous activities for our members to get involved in. Some of our officer teams have joined me here tonight. Over the summer, our previous SRO, Officer Fink, was promoted within Fresno PD, where we are sad to see him go. With all sad things comes new beginnings, and our new beginning starts with Officer Short. We are excited to have Officer Short a part of our Mustang family. Students from all walks of life have made positive connections with him. On August 21st, our FFA officer team attended the Chapter Officer Leadership Conference at Layton High School. We had the opportunity to learn leadership skills with peers, serving as other officers at other FFA chapters, and really getting to know these other officers in our area. Our students have been working hard at showing Mustang respect others, respect ourselves, and respect property. In addition to our PBIS store, where students can spend PBIS tickets for snacks and reward, all the students who turn in a ticket are put into a weekly drawing on our Mustang News, where two winners will receive a prize. Mustang News is another exciting addition to our school. Every week, our leadership students, including myself and others who are interested in recording and editing a nude broadcast video with the help of our ag teacher, Mr. Parker. Any announcements coming up, weekly PBIS drawings, and this week interview with our new SRO are just a few of the highlights. Recently, on September 4th, we had our first back-to-school night of the year, where amazing officer students and leadership students, including myself, had made banners and had a great time doing this. We had a great success for our first back-to-school night of the year and Pershing's largest crowd in a while. There was a large engagement from families and classroom tours, plus information from Fresno City College and Friday Night Live and others. Pershing's academic decathlon has started again with Mr. Fuentes coaching, where students, including myself, will be doing speeches and quizzes at Fresno State for competitions and more. We're excited to see what our academic Mustangs are doing this year. Our Black Student Union has made a strong start this year, which is a club to understand the African American culture, with many of our Mustangs taking a part in volunteering for club officer positions. Our Black Student Union officers are eager to make a positive difference with peers in our school this year. We're looking forward to continue this important club on our campus. Around our campus, school spirit and involvement is an all-time high, from students and staff participating in volleyball and basketball matches at lunch to a sense of community and inclusion throughout our student body. Pershing is a great place to be right now. Thank you, board members, for having us tonight, and have a great evening. Go Mustangs.
Thank you to both of our students for your updates. We now turn to Employee Association highlights. We first invite the president for the Central Unified Teachers Association, Laura Bolton.
Thank you again for having me every one of these meetings. It's very appreciated. So I have a few things shared with me by our site reps, whole variety of things. Liddell shared that they're off to a good start. They're getting a new TK teacher. They happen to know this TK teacher. They're very excited about her. She's a former reading intervention aide at their site. She's very knowledgeable and has a great relationship with many on the staff, so they're happy to welcome her. Madison also shared that they're getting a combo class, 1-2, first, second, to accommodate the additional students that they had. Their class sizes were already climbing up there, and so they're happy to be able to have a place to keep those kiddos. Roosevelt, they shared that their community liaison is working with staff and admin to send out weekly announcements and reminders to promote strong community and communication with their parents and families. And they're getting ready for their first PBIS reward events and have had great participation numbers in the previous year due to positive behavior around the school. So they're expecting more of the same this year. HK and Teague both shared that they had family events. They had goodies with grandparents at HK, and Teague had pastries with parents. They were well attended. I know that Teague had green and yellow Mexican pastries. It was really cute. And they're also reporting that a lot of their maintenance issues are getting fixed, so they're really happy to keep the school up and running smoothly. Garza had Club Rush with over 40 clubs available for students to participate in. And McKinley got a grant. Their library tech got a grant for a book vending machine. Kids who get 100% on AR quizzes are put in a drawing, and if they're pulled, they get a special gold coin to receive a free reward book from the vending machine. And then finally, Steinbeck shared that they are celebrating Mental Health Week with dress-up days and activities to help kids understand their emotions. I want to add that I had a really, really productive meeting that I usually and pretty much always do have a very productive meeting with the assistant superintendents today. We have a standing meeting, and we go through all kinds of concerns that come up at our site rep council, through emails, through just concerns that come up and come to me, things that I've attempted or that we've attempted to work on, and so I bring it to that level to see if we can problem solve. And one topic was the purchase orders, and how a lot of our staff don't understand how that works, and that we're talking about some sort of an educational piece to help teachers to understand why do things take so long, or why do they get kicked back, and what happens, how do we fix that, how do we prevent it. So we're in the business of education, and so we're talking about how we can educate our own employees on things like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We do not have a representative from the California School Employees Association tonight, so we move on to our reports section of the agenda. Under school reports, we will first hear from Madison Elementary School Principal Jackie Oliver.
It's wonderful to be here to tell you a little bit about how our school, Madison, is serving the community. it's a real pleasure to work in such an environment where the school culture between all of the staff is so high. And one of the things that we have going on for Madison right now is that we have really positive interactions between our families, staff, and students, and that can be observed on our panorama survey. Were we going to post the... Oh, I'm supposed to do the clicker?
Yeah.
Okay. The front TV? Okay. Sorry, I thought I had an assistant. Anyway, this is our newest logo from just a couple of years ago, you might remember, and Madison is now displaying that proudly. We have our athletics are now represented with our new logo, and that's something that we did want to just thank the board for all your support with that. This past year, we were very proud of ourselves because we had such growth in our SBAC scores. We went up 9 points, or 9% in ELA and 10 in math. So that was quite a bit of growth for our school. We're now above our pre-COVID numbers, and we're above the year before's number. That was quite a bit of growth, and one of the things I'd like to point out is that Madison staff members, not just the teachers, but the entire staff really decided we were going to work as a team and get input, kind of like from the farmers, you get the best input from the growers. So we all decided as a team that we were going to pull up our bootstraps and do whatever it took to make it work for our students. Being an overflow school, sometimes we have quite a bit of our population, as much as 20% of students who are overflowed to our school from other surrounding schools. We also have about 15% of the students that come in on transfers, and that's actually something to be really proud of because we are kind of far out there in the country, and that means parents have to transport. And it's quite a compliment when parents want to stay at Madison or come to Madison from outside districts or even from our own. So, but one of the things that is super important to us is that we grab those students and grab those families and we make them warriors quick and with a lot of dedication, because students that feel committed and families that feel like they're a part of our school are going to be much more invested in working with the staff and making those relationships strong. So our teachers and staff members really work together to, I want to bring out one point. They wanted to attribute the success, and I have to put my glasses back on. They wanted to look at the factors that were within their control, were within our control. There's a lot of things we can't control, but let's not look so much at that right now. Let's focus on what we can do for the kids, and that takes quite a bit of self-reflection. And as a staff, our staff happened to, on our panorama survey, score 100% in teacher efficacy. And when I think about that, I think that that is teachers who are taking a personal look at their own teaching skills and their confidence level, and they're raising them up by attributing to the success factors that they can change in their control. And that comes with a challenge mindset, and they're going to look at the new situations that we're in with students and families and see what we can do to work on those challenges and increase our test scores. We also focused strong on our IABs and FIABs, and that again was a commitment that the teachers made last year, that we were going to not just give the minimum amount of 6 tests, but we were going to do more assessments than that and really look at the data as a team and see what we need to do to raise those scores. Last year, we also began to host math nights again. We had them in the past, but last year we had 4 of them, or 3 of them actually. But this year we have 4 scheduled, and they were really well attended. We broke them up into groups, preschool and kindergarten, and then grades 1 through 3, and then grades 3 through 6. We're going to start that again a little earlier in the year. We have 2 planned for fall semester, 2 for the spring. We already do monthly family literacy nights, which are generally attended by between 20 and 30 families per month. That's a really high number when you think about how far our parents have to drive out to the country to come to those. We're primarily a busing school. We have no walkers that walk in our community, and so it's an effort for families to come. For engagement, you can see some of the lovely pictures on the bottom. We have had a Discovering Latin America through History, Dance, and Food class last year in our after-school program, and that's a little performance in the picture on the bottom of some of those students. We also had a little folklorico class for our littlest TK and kindergartners, and they had a performance right before Christmas, before our school play, and it was a showstopper. They were so adorable. But we've aligned our extended learning program classes to encourage a variety of outside activities that students may not have access to. And we even started some fun things like cross stitch and crocheting. They were little classes. The crocheting class was at the very end of the day. It was the last 30 minutes, and it was a great way to not waste those minutes. It's something that's trendy and catching on with the younger community these days. But we also have mindfulness through journaling, where we were looking at the social emotional well-being of students, also working on language arts skills and even some physical fitness. Our panorama scores this year went up. I did mention already about our teacher efficacy, but our students feeling supported with relationships between friends, family, and adults at school, that's on a continual rise, and we were now at 90% in the spring of 2024. Makes me feel good that the families are feeling and the students are feeling happy and safe and accepted at Madison. We're making it count. We are really working hard with our English language learner students. I want to thank the board for having EL coaches now. It's been a couple of years, or maybe just a year. It seems like the work they've been doing is phenomenal. And we had 18 of our 101 students redesignated. I'm happy to say that 15 out of the 18 of those were in grades 3 through 6. And right now we only have one 6th grader who's an EL student. And so I've been working to try and figure out that calculation with the LTELs. And then when you think about some kids did go to TK, some kids didn't go to TK, where do you start the count? Any way you do it, one student left in 6th grade is success for us. And so I'm really proud of that. We have teaching fellows in all of our classes all the way through 6th grade for 3 hours a day. That's some of the way that Madison has elected to use our funds. And that's really helping get reteach of the actual content that's being taught in the classroom immediately for the students who need it. And it's also a way that students can bond with the teacher and the classroom and know that they're supported. Sometimes the teacher's in the middle of the lesson. We've talked to students, and sometimes they feel uncomfortable interrupting. But when the teaching fellow is right there to help them, it can make the process of learning continue instead of stagnating for even just a few minutes. Our suspension rate is really good. We only had 2 students that we suspended one time each last year, and so that's 0.36 of 1%. That's pretty low, very low. And so we are really proud of that. We decreased it from 2% the year before, which was also great. We're using a lot of restorative justice, peer mediation, and positive reinforcements. We're trying to look to the roots of the issues and make sure that we're offering counseling, meeting with families, including plans in the support systems for the students to have success. We meet weekly as a WISE team. Some people call it a BAIT team. We call it a WISE team because we're very wise. and that includes all of our support staff so that we can save time and efficiency and really talk and see who's the best at offering a strategy or support for a student or family. And those referrals come by other staff members and also from families. One of the fun things that we did last year was we started a new club called Best Buddies, and that's with our functional life skills students. As I was going through so many interviews, hiring sped aides and things all the time, it seemed like I heard a lot from people who said the reason they got interested in special education was because they supported a student in PE who was special education, or they had a relative. Of course, you always expect that one, but hearing about the kids who had the opportunity in junior high or high school to support or mentor other students who had some disabilities changed their lives in a way that made them want to come and do something with that experience. So we thought, why not try it a little younger? And it's been a success. We are really enjoying it. We're building a culture with improvement always on our mind. Some of this data I've already gone through with you, but we're always looking to improve as leaders, as educators, and remembering that all of our staff, including our classified, are super important. And it's that whole circle that takes accountability for student learning. Our panorama survey showed that parents feel like they're welcomed at our school. We have about 8 or 10 people outside the front office welcoming staff and parents every day to school, and that helps us to keep an eye on social emotional issues that could be happening during the day. It also lets parents know that their students are safe. We've got the staff here, and also we're here to hear their concerns in several different languages, because we have a few languages represented out in the front of the school when a parent walks up. Again, we have other opportunities for our families to be involved, and we have the literacy nights, like I mentioned, but we also have cooking class that we offer to the parents, and they enjoy doing that, and they get to not just learn a recipe, but they get to bring home the ingredients and even the tools. Sometimes they're baking pans or rolling pins or a whisk. They even got a blender this year. And so that was pretty cool, because families can really go not just hear about it, but they can take advantage of trying it at their very own homes. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Principal Oliver. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Kerfan?
Thank you, Vice President Creel. Principal Oliver, thank you for your presentation. I just want to say that the amount of growth that your school has had in just a single year, with suspensions, with participation, ELA, math, is phenomenal. And thank you for the work you are doing and the teachers at Madison as well.
Thank you. I'll share that with them.
Thank you. Any other questions? Trustee Cervantes?
I do.
Sorry, one more question.
No questions. I just want to thank you for your efforts. Almost double-digit growth in both the categories. That's phenomenal, and a great use of funds to utilize those teacher fellows through the reading for the 3 hours a day in every classroom. I think that's going to pay huge dividends. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Any last questions?
I think that'll conclude the questions. Thank you. Next, we invite Principal McCurley from El Capitan Middle School.
Good evening, President Singh, members of the board, and Superintendent Davis. Thank you for providing time this evening to hear about some of the celebrations, opportunities for improvement, increased engagement, and highlights of some of the projects at El Capitan Middle School. During the last year, all staff on campus have used a collaborative approach with specific goals at the heart of the work, allowing our students to experience growth in both English language arts and mathematics. Certificated and classified staff have worked together to accomplish these gains. A few highlights that I'd like to share include our special education students have made significant gains in English language arts, reading, and mathematics. African American students have made significant gains on their local iReady assessments, increasing almost 7% in reading, almost 4% on the SBAC, and almost 15% on the iReady math. Our English language learners are making steady progress as well, making gains in both iReady assessments, which contribute to the reclassification rates we have at El Capitan. I recognize that there is still work to be accomplished, and we will continue to streamline our focus to meet our goals. We have already continued this work throughout the year with disaggregation of data in PLCs and the development of SMART goals for the whole school as well as individual goals for each educational partner. For students to learn, they must be in class. Our intervention specialists have worked on building relationships with our students who struggle to get to school. We have increased our attendance rates and decreased our chronic absenteeism. This year, we have already started home visits for students who are missing school and will continue to do so to ensure students can get there. Our family outreach liaison has made significant progress in the connections with our families in the community by providing resources and supports as needed. She has facilitated family engagement trips to colleges and fairs to provide families with resources and to explore options available to themselves and to their students in our community. With the addition of restorative practices to build positive relationships, resolve conflicts, and repair harm in our community, our school, and our classrooms, we were able to decrease our suspension rate by 12% last year. With the addition of a full-time SRO, we have already started our year off with improvements in building relationships with students, parents, and the community. 2 weeks ago, we hosted a meet and greet where families were provided with an opportunity to gain insight on the role of SROs in our schools, ask questions, and better understand how their services can be utilized. Having an officer on campus provides students with another adult they can turn to for support, someone they know that is there to protect them, and this provides families with a resource for support for their own needs as well. Our officer has impacted our campus this year through improved safety measures, presentations to students, and consistently being available. To make significant changes and support a growth mindset approach, El Capitan is continuing to work with California Ed Partners on track. Through this work, we have focused on teacher-led changes in practices to instruction, intervention, and grading. Nicole Madrigal from El Capitan has played a significant role in bridging the gap from professional learning we go through the on-track convenings to the instructional practices and good first teaching our students experience in the classroom. As a direct result of this work, El Capitan students have increased their passing rates for all content areas over the past 3 years. At the end of last year, El Capitan reached less than 10% of students earning a D or F. We started this work when we had over 20% of our students failing classes at El Capitan. To decrease the failure rate through frequent feedback, instructional practices, and the use of data to inform instruction is something to celebrate. Through the PLC process with the site learning leaders at the forefront of El Capitan's work on school-wide focus to teach informational tech standards as a whole school approach. No matter what subject a teacher taught, they implemented strategies in the classroom to increase student understanding of how to read, comprehend, and use informational text to learn and expand their knowledge. Through this approach, students experience significant gains on their test scores, a better understanding of the information they are reading, and staff work together to provide students with instructional practices that were relevant. None of this was easy, but the educational partners at El Capitan took this data seriously and approached this by making student-based decisions. This was a huge accomplishment for our staff and for our students. By providing students with specific supports and intervention, our students are leaving El Capitan more prepared for high school and ready to be successful in A through G courses. As a direct result of the collaboration approach, English learners have made significant progress in areas needed to demonstrate proficiency on the state assessment, and 20% of our English learners were redesignated last year. El Capitan has maintained a focus on professional learning communities on various levels, from the site learning team through behavior attendance intervention teams, departments, and courses, and through the development of our classified staff as well. Everyone on campus has a focus on increasing student learning. School-wide focus on professional learning has focused on the development of instructional strategies to improve access to English learners, students with disabilities, and other subgroups through the use of data and the improvement cycle. Social-emotional learning has also been a positive addition to our curriculum, providing students with weekly opportunities to gain a better understanding of their emotions, how to process through situations, resources that are available to them, and guidance from their teachers and other staff on how to deal with teenage situations. Part of the instructional practices cycle has included focused time for administration to provide feedback to staff to provide support in instructional practices. Dedicated time to support the teachers always tends to be a challenge, but by staying focused and dedicated, we continue to make progress and move forward in this work. This last slide highlights the importance of Tier 1 instruction. This instruction the students are receiving daily in their classes from every teacher. This may not seem like very innovative or much of a highlight to some, but to me it is significant. Making instruction a priority when there are so many other things that can get in the way is difficult. Every part of what we do has been intentional, responsive to data, and provides students with instruction they need. Our students are excelling as a result of this school-wide approach. We have students who are involved, making better choices, and gaining confidence. And we are more confident in the students as they transition to high school, and none of this would be possible without the collaborative approach from all of the staff at El Capitan. Thank you for your time, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Okay, I have a couple. First of all, thank you for the report, and I'm glad to see and hear about the progress. Specifically, I know during our contract discussion and the board's approval of the SRO contract, some of the community members were particularly interested in having a dedicated SRO. So I'm glad that there's that discussion happening. And based on that information, I do just want to turn to your engagement slide, particularly the decrease of 12% in suspensions, the restorative practices, and just the language there of the impact of school resource officers. Can you talk a little bit about how that's impacted and helped decrease the suspension rate?
Yes. So at El Capitan, our SRO is heavily involved in building relationships with our students. Our current SRO is looking to start a club. Our previous SRO was part of one of our clubs as well. Building those relationships is significant, and it definitely provides students with another adult to be on campus that they can go to and trust. One of the things that we've been working on with the restorative practices piece of it is finding alternatives to discipline. And our SROs have been heavily involved with that and building the relationships and educating our students. I think one of the biggest components of it is when they leave middle school, they go to high school, and things tend to get really real in high school. And so if we're able to educate them in middle school and help them understand the ramifications of the consequences as they get older, that part has been significant. And with the addition of the SROs, we've been able to have those really hard conversations with kids and families. And it just hits a little bit different when it comes from somebody else other than a parent who's told their child multiple times or an administrator who's told them as well. Sometimes it's the third person that tells them that they're like, oh, okay, I get that.
Okay, thank you. Do you happen to know for your academic celebrations and opportunities, you have the change and growth in the English learners of 2.1%, and I think just looking at the demographics from 2023, El Capitan has quite a large percentage of students that are categorized under English learners. Do you happen to know how many students that is, the 2.1%?
I don't know the 2.1%, but if someone wants to do the math, we have 120-ish English learners. So if somebody wants to math that out for me, we can do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For your last slide, you talked about Tier 1 instruction. Can you talk a little bit about what your role has been as far as ensuring that this Tier 1 instruction is happening, whether that's been classroom observations, any additional professional learning, but just kind of what role you play on your campus?
Mm-hmm. So through professional learning that I'm the one who coordinates and plans, I would say 95% of it. Sometimes we bring outside vendors in to do some professional learning, but I'm at the forefront of most of the professional development, and in that is really bringing in resources. So when I say I'm at the forefront of it, I'm also bringing in other resources. So one of the approaches that I've taken this year and last year as well is we have some really good teachers on our campus that are phenomenal, and working in partnership with those teachers, they're helping me provide professional development to the rest of the teachers. So I'm in classrooms a lot. If I see a teacher who is doing something great that I think that everybody should be able to see, it's easy for me to bring that person to the professional development and have them present what they're doing. So one of the examples of that is our ELD teachers. We have 2 ELD teachers, and they have come and done a couple professional development sessions alongside with our staff to help them understand what are some of those instructional practices that they're using in their classroom that translate really easily to all of the other content areas. And if you're in education, you know that strategies that we use with our English learners are very effective with all other students as well. And when you have 5 or 6 teachers using similar strategies, it's easier for you to digest the information when you're not trying to learn the strategy of instruction and you're just trying to learn the content.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation. I think those are all the questions and comments.
Okay,
Thank
you. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too. Okay, we move on to item 2 under reports, receive information regarding start of 24-25 school year, and we will hear from Superintendent Davis.
Thank you. I'm actually going to share this with a few people. We just wanted, now that school has started, to give you a quick report on 3 specific areas. We're going to briefly talk about the balancing of our classrooms. It's just been settled. I'm going to spotlight a resource that you'll see coming up in social media places, and then Dr. Boatwright has a resource to share with you as well. And so for flow, I think I'll start, then I'll go to Mr. Collegian and then Dr. Boatwright.
Thank you. Sorry.
I'm just going to get my part done and then dive to you. Sorry.
You handed off to me already. Sorry.
I've handed you a sample, and there's some copies in the back. This is just one sample of what we'll be seeing around campuses. Secondary campuses are specific focus right now. We have a variety of different ways for students to help keep their campus safe. You are used to the see something, say something. You'll see at the start of it, hear something, see something, say something. And our schools have done, as was mentioned by our student body presidents, things to get students engaged, help them understand in their week of welcome how things work around the campus. This is specific to each campus. We already have a few schools that are using a QR code that routes tips from students directly to the school site. This doesn't take the place of WeTip. It doesn't take the place of other Crime Stopper apps that we also have. Those don't change and still become available, but this helps to route very quickly the student's ability to be in contact. It was implemented last year, I believe, at Rio Vista, and is already in place at some other schools. The sample I've given you is the start of the one that will be going out for Justin Garza High School. I know they're working on finishing their draft of it. The intention is to make sure this is all over campus and available to families so that students know if there is a concern or they're hearing that there's a concern, that they're able to report that. I think what's also important in our messaging for this year in our feedback from last year and the start of this year is at the bottom of that flyer, and really reminding our students, equipping them and empowering them that if they know about a plan for physical aggression or something between students that just isn't sitting right, to report it, and this is one way to do it. Maybe that's a little bit more comfortable for them. And then also really educating students on the safety matters. If you see something happening on your campus, to move away from it so that staff can come in and help and not get in the way of that work. And then lastly, we'll be talking more this year about cell phones and the components of if you are recording something or if you're posting something and sharing it, the dangers of that, and really trying to help educate students and address those issues when they're happening. So that's the starter. So I went out of order. Assistant Superintendent Collegian, you want to take it on from here?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Superintendent Davis. A few comments from my side. I want to offer high praise to several departments, namely Student Services led by Ms. Maisie Young, Maintenance and Operations and Transportation, Special Education, Student Information Systems, Informational Technology, Library Services, Child Nutrition Services, all of our school sites and clerks for working together to assure that our students and classes were balanced by August 30th of this school year.
our overflow sites. Thank you to them for accepting the students and providing them with a warm welcome where they attended their new overflow school on September 3rd. So again, thank you to Madison, Saroyan, and Liddell staff respectively, including the human resources staff to help provide support for the opening days of school to assure that additional staffing adjustments were also made to ensure a smooth transition. Lastly, we are excited for the success of our students and our staff as we embark on another brand new school year. Thank you.
In front of you tonight, you have a packet of these site cards. This is the third year that we're producing these. Essentially what these do is they share important information, names of staff on site, and also contact information. So you'll see, for example, Biola, I love this one, it's purple, but it has their mascot, their school name, information on the principal secretary, information on attendance, the principal, expanded learning program, liaison information, all of those folks that are important to our parents to reach out to for information. Also at the bottom of the card, you'll see there that the crisis hotline information is there. So these are created, they're shared out with the school sites print them, they hand them out to parents, our liaisons have a stack of them, our new families that come into the school sites are given this information, so it's just a really quick and handy reference tool.
And I'll just wrap up by letting you know that we are currently at 16,000 students, about 4 different than where we were this time last school year. So we've got a full house and we're ready for a great year. So happy to answer questions you may have on this. Otherwise, just wanted to assure you of what we're getting started of this year.
Thank you. I'm assuming Clerk Kerfon and staff, you'll let me know if there's public comments on these items. Are there any comments or questions for Superintendent Davis and her team based on the information provided related to this item? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question because I don't know, and it might be a silly question, but I really don't know. So I'm a student. I do the QR code. Where does this go? Who receives it?
So we're using this system similarly when students are doing class requests to change. It's a Google document on the backside. It's a form. It goes into the form and then it routes to the appropriate individual. Dr. Lopez is working with the intervention counselors. Our administrators are working with the administrative team. They could get specific and route different ones to different people, but in general, it's a document that they can all review, write down who's going to help or assist with that one and track that way. It's been a system that's worked well in terms of adjusting class schedules. Used to be a line with a paper that you had to have and stand in line to get it. Now students just submit and it routes. So our schools are used to using that.
Thank you.
Trustee Sellers?
All right. I actually have a whole handful of questions. In regards to this is fantastic, but do we have the intention of putting this in public places as well as private spaces on campus?
I think each school will look at where its foot traffic is. This is intended for the students to be using. We also have We Tip and Crime Stoppers. I think we can do a better job advertising that. That's often what's used by the community, but they will be specific to each school, so it will be in the spaces. Now, there are adults that are on campus for events and things. It doesn't stop them from being able to scan in the code and enter a message. The idea is specific to school, route straight to that staff to be able to address the issue.
My concern is just making sure that it's accessible to students in all locations.
Yes.
Whether or not they want to be seen scanning this or in private.
Yeah.
My next question is, we're 15 days into the school year and we've already seen numerous physical altercations on campuses. As far as that, my questions are, what are we doing to curb that? And as well as, the fire alarms seem to be going off daily from vaping and other reasons, questioning what we're doing to curb that as well.
I'll start, but I also have a team here that may have more specific information than me. But we have been in conversation about the concerns of physical altercation specifically. The schools have been responding in changing active supervision, acquiring different tools that will help check students in and out of classrooms so they know where students are if they're leaving to use a restroom during break, during the class time. We have some of those already in play at a couple of our high schools, and it's being looked at for our other campuses as well. So moving the staff around, we staffed a little bit differently this year based on issues that we had last year. And there's some specific conversations I was hearing of just as late as this afternoon around an awareness of students who have had prior concerns or issues and trying to put in something into place to stop it before it happens. There seems to be some ongoing issues or feuds between students that if we can get in front of it, we've got staff on campus to try to do that work. In terms of the vaping, so that's in terms of the physical aggression side, essentially proximity monitoring and trying to be preventative. In terms of the vaping side of the issue, a couple of those also play in the active supervision and where our liaisons are on campus, and they've been very strategic about where they're placed and how they can help with that. I think some are also pursuing a different check-in and check-out system to make that a little bit more efficient, make sure they're in the right places when they need to be. And then we're also working with organizations like Prodigy who typically do substance abuse counseling and things to try to get in front to also educate and try to help families find alternatives to supporting kids that are choosing this what we consider very dangerous and damaging choice. So, anything you want to add, Dr. Boatwright, from your team?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
I didn't want to miss something.
My next question is in regards to balancing classes and sizes. How many students do we have that have their classes adjusted due to a teacher can't teach the course anymore due to their credentials?
I'm sorry, Ms. Sells, I don't think I understand the question. Every student right now is serviced by a teacher within our institution.
Okay. Do we have any high school classes that the teachers who have had a class are no longer teaching that class due to their credential possibly being non-compliant?
I don't know exactly. Here's what I can say is that we have teachers who are on limited assignments or teachers who are interns or working towards attaining their credential or mastery in that content area that are still teaching in classrooms with students.
Okay.
May I interject? I do know there was some class, when balancing was taking place, we did some class adjustments for mathematics. When I think about that question, there are mathematics credentials, you can only teach certain subject areas. Did we have any change in that?
The site did balance their math classes to adjust classes to assure that students had a math teacher, correct? Yes. Essentially absorbed the teacher, an FTE, to assure that there wasn't a sub there, but we're serviced by a math teacher, correct?
Okay. Offhand, do you know how many teachers we have that are teaching with the emergency credentials?
Not offhand, but I could provide that information for you.
Okay. I'd like to know that, and then how we have a plan to get those classes filled with credentialed teachers. That's all the questions I have at the moment.
Go ahead.
If there's also anything specific that I can follow up on, I'd be happy to. If there's a specific case, we're not trying to not answer the question, but off the top of our heads, we may not be aware of something, and so we'd be happy to help.
Yeah. In that case, that I know.
I would ask if it's about a specific teacher and a specific site.
No, it's just
okay.
in general, just general knowledge. One of the recent meetings, we had a update provided the, I believe it's the state's report from last year.
Yes.
Would it be possible to get something similar for current numbers for this year?
For current certificated staff?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. We track every teacher that's on an emergency credential, an internship, a short-term staff permit, and a provisional internship permit. Many of those teachers are in special education, mathematics, science, especially physics, chemistry, and our individual singleton classes. For example, electives that are challenging to fill, like consumer family services. Many of those positions are staffed by teachers who are pursuing their credentials, who are actually in credential programs, making progress towards achieving their preliminary credential. Our human resources coordinators on the regular monitor and meet with those teachers to assure their some of those obstacles or any challenges they may have or any resources they may need in terms of study material, and constant communication with their partner universities to ensure they're making progress in achieving their credentials. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. I do just have a quick question. This flyer that we're going to be distributing, I understand each campus is going to distribute. Do we have a standard policy of providing this in a language other than English? And what other languages do we intend to provide for our students?
We do Spanish and Punjabi, and then I don't believe we'll have to look at the enrollment and the requests of families, whether or not Hmong, but it's usually Spanish and Punjabi.
Okay.
I shouldn't say usually. It is Spanish and Punjabi at the campuses of secondary that we're talking about.
Okay. And then we just look at the campuses based on what the percentage of languages are spoken. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That'll conclude this item. We move on to Superintendent and Board Communications. Superintendent Davis.
I tried to make this short because you just heard me talking, but I did want to give you a couple of updates. Last Friday, our area administrator, Mark Fowler, joined me at our Fresno Business Compact. You may know the Compact because each spring we have a luncheon where we often are celebrating partners in the business industry that are giving back to our schools. It's actually an organization that meets monthly, and it is business partners from around Fresno that are and Fresno County that are interested in helping us in achieving career readiness for our students. We were asked to be a part of a discussion with our industry partners on what we are looking at in next steps with regard to community work experiences. And really good conversation to start off this year. We had a lot of new connections already made, and Mr. Fowler is already following up on a San Joaquin Valley Manufacturing Alliance Summit to get some of our students and teachers to that event in October. And so we're looking forward to just a refresh of that work and the benefit for our program specifically. This Thursday, we will attend a Spirit of 9/11 event on the 12th, hosted by Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. We're going to be able to celebrate a former El Capitan student, currently Central High School student, Rashkiran Kaur Jandu, and her teacher, librarian Rosemary King. They're going to be recognized at the event along with others and for their participation in the One Voice of the Spirit of 9/12 art contest, 9/11 art contest. So stay tuned on that. And then next week, our director English and some of our staff and students will be attending the San Joaquin Valley Expo Equal Access to Higher Education Opportunities and Healthcare event for underrepresented students. And so I think that's it.
Thank you, Superintendent Davis. Any reports from the board? Trustee Solis? Right, correct. Any board reports under board communications?
It's more or less a request. I'll leave it up to the chair and the superintendent whether you want to bring it up as an agendized informational item or perhaps an administrative report. What I'm looking at is detailed information on the facility concerns at Teague Elementary. We have several projects, some scheduled, some not. I'd like a breakdown to what exactly those projects entail and a timeline when we anticipate they will be finished, and also an idea of how these projects are going to be financed. I'm especially looking after the projects pertaining to restrooms, numerous complaints that we have restrooms up there that our little kids can't reach up to wash their hands. I guess I'll call it the miscellaneous parking lot going in behind the annex to relieve the busy times when the parents are dropping off the kids there in the regular parking lot. It seems to be that there's a rush hour there. And any other projects you might have coming down the pike, just general information, but I'll leave it to you if you want me to do a request for a agenda item with that coming as the item. If you want to do it as an administrative report and just sort of break that information out to your report, so I know for sure that's what you're talking about. How would you wish to proceed?
So just as a reminder, this item for Superintendent and Board Communications is intended for the board to provide any updates or reports on any activities they've been involved with for the district. We do have a specific item on the agenda, item Q, additional information and closing comments, which is intended to provide an opportunity for the board to request information. Trustee Solis, your request has been heard. President Singh is on the line, and so he and Superintendent Davis can follow up as to the next step is bringing that information for the board.
Thank you.
Item noted, but yeah, the correct place, just as a reminder for all board members, is at the end of the agenda, as Trustee Vice President Carrillo noted.
Thank you very much. We move on to comments from the public. Is there any member of the public wishing to address the board at this time on any item not currently on the agenda? If you are here in person, we will take those comments first. We do have note cards. You can complete those if you're not comfortable completing them. Then after we take those comments, just come up to the podium. We ask that you identify yourself. If you are joining us and would like to provide a comment remotely, the number to dial is 559-276-3150. Again, these are comments from the public on items not on the agenda. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. We ask that you be respectful of that time. As a reminder, because these items are not on the agenda for board discussion, we cannot discuss or engage or respond to your comments, but we are listening to you, and we may direct staff to reach out to you. So with that, Clerk Kerfan, if you can please call the first comment.
Our first comment is from Blanca Navarro. And please make sure the green light is on your mic, and you'll have 3 minutes from when you start.
Good afternoon. I'm here because I have a concern. My son started high school this year. He's a freshman at Central East, which I'm really excited about. I attended Central Unified pretty much my whole school life, so I want to definitely keep that tradition going. I'm very happy with basically all of my experience. I do have a little concern. My son's not allowed to ride the school bus. The school bus, I can see it from my bedroom window. It goes directly to the school, but I already spoke to transportation. Apparently there is an imaginary line. Now, I have a problem with that line. I know you guys have to have it somewhere, but the fact that I can see it from my bedroom window and my son has to walk right by his peers and they get to get on the bus and he has to make this 2-mile walk. Mind you, the dogs, mind you, the heat, mind you, the homeless that we're having a problem with in our community, it's starting to be an issue, and I just do not want my child walking to school when there is a bus stop directly in front of my bedroom window. I don't think that's right. I think that's wrong, and I think he should be allowed to ride the bus. We have already 4 tardies going on, and as you guys know, the school year just started. I don't want that to continue, and it is a problem for me. I have another son that is also going to be attending Central East, and I just don't want this issue to continue. That's all I have.
Thank you, Blanca. We'll be in touch. Our next comment is for Yusel Zalapa. Thank you. And you'll have 3 minutes whenever you're ready. Oh, is this a translation? Okay, God, thank you.
All right, good evening, Board President and Vice President Carrillo and members of the board. My name is Yusel Salap, and I'm the resident of Area 2. Thank you for the opportunity to address your board this evening. I'm here to express my deep concerns regarding the current state of support in the special education program at my son's school, Soroyan Elementary. I've emailed these concerns to the board president, vice president, and district superintendent, and I appreciate their prompt responses. I'm also grateful for the meeting scheduled for tomorrow with Interim Director Ann Franco, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Marilyn Lopez, and Program Supervisor Jennifer Jones. And I know I've been playing phone tag with Superintendent Kelly Davis, so I appreciate that. Recently, the number of special education students in my son's classroom increased from 10 to 15, yet no additional staffing was provided. This 50% increase in workload without corresponding resources is alarming and unsustainable. Special education students require a high level of attention and individualized support to be able to thrive. The current staffing levels are inadequate and hinder the learning and development of these vulnerable children. During a recent visit to the classroom, I spent an hour observing and was overwhelmed by the level of need that these students have. The lack of sufficient staffing and support is not only detrimental to their education, but also creates a potentially dangerous environment. Unfortunately, as we have navigated through my son's educational needs, it often feels like special education is an afterthought. Since the start of the school year, we have noticed behavioral changes in my son. He has been experiencing more meltdowns and often seems dysregulated when picked up from school. I understand there are standardized staff-to-student ratios in place, and I plan to educate myself further on this subject. However, for this particular group of students, those ratios are insufficient due to their exceptionally high needs. I challenge each member of the board to spend a day working in a special education classroom to truly understand and appreciate the incredible work done by our special education teachers and teaching aides. As an administrator of public funds, I understand the constraints of limited resources and labor shortages faced by public entities today. However, I must highlight the significant liability this issue poses for the district. If a special needs child is harmed due to inadequate staffing, the responsibility will not fall on the teachers or teacher aides. As parents, we will hold the district accountable for ensuring our children's safety. I'm not here to create a divide, but to bring this issue to your attention and collaborate with you, the board, administrative staff, and in any capacity to achieve positive outcomes for these children who unfortunately cannot advocate for themselves. I look forward to tomorrow's meeting with district staff, and I would continue to keep advocating for these children and will continue to keep you involved. And thank you very much, Vice President Carrillo. I appreciate your prompt response. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Carrillo, no other comments at this time.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the phone?
No phone comments at this time.
Okay. Hearing no further comments from the public on non-agendized items, we move on to the consent agenda. Before taking action on this item, I just want to highlight a couple of items being approved here or for consideration for approval. The adoption of resolution number 242507 proclaiming September 17, 2024 as observance of the Constitution and Citizenship Day. We also have a resolution proclaiming September 15 through October 15, 2024 as National Latinx Heritage Month. And so with that, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Kerfan. I have a second by Trustee Solis. We'll have a roll call vote. Trustee Cervantes?
Yes.
Trustee Kerfan?
Aye.
Trustee Sellers?
Yes.
Trustee Solis? Yes. President Singh?
Yes.
I will also register a yes vote. The motion carries unanimous support for the consent agenda. We move on to action items. Action item number 1, approve 2023-2024 unaudited actual reports. We will be hearing from Assistant Superintendent Ekbal.
Good evening. We have Mrs. Marisela Ordinas, our Director of Fiscal Services. She's going to be presenting the unaudited actual.
Good evening, Board Vice President Carrillo, Board Trustees, Superintendent Davis, and Central Unified Community. Before you tonight, the district will be presenting the 23-24 unaudited actuals report, which summarizes the year-end financial statements as of June 30th, 2024. We will be comparing this report with what was reported in early June as part of the 24-25 budget adoption. So first, I would like to share a brief summary of the budgeting process for school districts. School districts annually report 4 reports that go before the board for review and approval. First is the annual budget report, which is presented and approved in June. Second is the first interim budget report, and that's presented in December. The third report is the second interim budget report, which is presented in March. And finally, the unaudited actuals report, and what we're presenting today. This report reflects actual data as of the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. So first off, we'd like to report on the revenues. And the district has four major categories of revenue. First is the LCFF, which stands for Local Control Funding Formula, and that's the main source of revenue for our district. That's generated from data from average daily attendance, ADA, enrollment, unduplicated pupil count, and property tax revenue. The second category of revenue is our federal, which are mainly restricted funds, and examples of those are Title I, ESSER, special education, and child nutrition. The third category of revenue is our other state revenue, and those are state-driven funds for state programs, and some examples of those are child development, CalSafe, and lottery. The final category of revenue is other local revenue, and those are for local grants, local programs. Some examples of those are our FCSS After School Program, Emergency Connectivity Fund, and City of Fresno grants. So on this slide, on this table, we are comparing, as mentioned before, what we actually closed for 23-24 compared to what we estimated closing for each of these categories. This table is for our unrestricted funds. And so for LCFF revenue, we are closing a little over $203.9 million. Federal revenue shows zero, but that's restricted funds, and that will be reflected on the next slide. For other state revenue, we are closing at over $6.6 million. And for other local revenue, we are closing at over $7 million. In total, we are closing over $6.3 million of what we had estimated we'd be closing for the year. And that's mainly due to effects of COLA reductions after Governors may revise budget updates, the scheduling of when we receive funds. We report on what we received on June 30th versus what we estimated to have received when we first presented this in June. The other big variance is in our other local revenue, which is due to a combination of grant funds from the CalShape grant and interest revenue received. Our next slide summarizes our restricted revenue funding strings. And for 23-24, we're closing for federal revenue at over $38.7 million. For other state revenue, we're closing at over $16.6 million. And under other local revenue, we are closing at $13.2 million. In total, we are closing for restricted funds little shy of $26.6 million. And that is mainly due to when we actually receive the funds. So when we estimate, we account for what is going to be received, but we actually have to report on what we actually received. So the variance there gets set up as deferred revenue, and we will be reporting on that as we receive it. This next slide is just a visual picture summarizing the revenues that were presented in the previous slides, comparing our unrestricted and our restricted revenues. On the top pie chart, it shows that 93.7% of the district total unrestricted revenue, which is from LCFF, is generated from data of our ADA data, enrollment, unduplicated pupil count, and property tax revenue. 3.1% is other state revenue, and 3.2% is other local revenue for unrestricted. The bottom pie chart shows our restricted revenue, and 56.4% of that is from federal resources, 24.3% is other state revenue, and 19.3% is other local revenue. Next, we move on to our expenditures, and for our expenditures, all our expenditures are lumped into 5 main categories. Those are salaries and benefits, books and supplies, services and other operating expenditures, capital outlay, and other outgo. For the 23-24 fiscal year, we are closing at a little over 162.9 million under salaries and benefits. For books and supplies, we are closing at over 5.7 million. For services and other operating expenditures, we are closing at 16.5 million. For capital outlay, we are closing at 7.2 million. And for other outgo, we are closing at 5.2 million. Altogether, we are closing under 18.9 million of what we estimated we would be closing. And this is due to the one-time movement of COVID-related services from unrestricted to restricted categories. It's also due to, under capital outlay, the variance is due to work in progress projects that continue beyond June 30th. This next table shows our expenditures for the restricted resources. For salary and benefits, we are closing at 54.4 million. For books and supplies, we are closing at 6 million. Services and other operating expenditures, we are closing at over 17.2 million. Capital outlay, 6.5 million, and other outgo, 2.6 million. All in total together, we are closing under shy of 30 million from what we estimated closing. And this is due to a variety of reasons, but the main reasons are for items procured, services procured during the 23-24 year, but did not fully expended by June 30th. This next slide shows the combination of our expenditures, combining the unrestricted and restricted expenditures from our general fund. As you can see on the pie chart, 77% of our combined expenditures are to salaries and benefits, and then for our unrestricted expenditures, salary and benefits account for 83%, and 50% is accounted for our restricted expenditures for salary and benefits. So to summarize the data for 23-24, our unaudited actuals are information that reflects actual financial data as of June 30th. This data may change once the financial records are audited by our annual financial audit and any audit adjustments that are made at that time. Financial data is constantly monitored by our department and by the district as a whole to ensure that the district is operating within its projected means while ensuring services to students continue uninterrupted. Any adjustments to the budget will be presented at first interim, which is due December 15th, and at that time we'll provide an updated multi-year projection and operating budget for 24-25. And with that, that concludes this presentation. At this time, administration is recommending the board approve the 23-24 unaudited actuals report, and I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
No comments at this time.
Okay. Do we know if we have any note cards?
No.
Okay. Comments or questions from the board? Trustee Sellers?
Thank you. The deferred revenue is roughly about 27 million. I just want to confirm that that's still monies that we're expecting to receive?
That is money that we are expected to receive.
Okay. Is there an estimated time frame, or is it just kind of we'll get it when we get it?
Some items, some revenue, I believe, does give us an estimate, but sometimes we just get the check. When we receive it, we're happy to deposit it.
Okay. Thank you. The other question I have is under the unrestricted expenditures, capital outlay. I believe we came under, but I just wanted to confirm that those are still expenses that we originally estimated we came under, but those probably going to be carried over to this year, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Cervantes?
Only because I got lost. I apologize. So looking at the expenditure, I'm sorry, the unaudited actuals and restricted. Under salary and benefits, it says 77%. But then you elated to, it was 84%. But I don't see that indicated on this chart. Can you explain to me what you meant by that?
Was it this one? This
Yes.
chart right here?
So initially it was 77%, right? Salary
Yes,
and
combined.
benefits. Right. But then you said our actuals was 84%. Is that-
So, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So combined, when we're combining our unrestricted and restricted total expenditures, it comes out to 77. But I noted down there for our unrestricted portion of it, it's 83%. And for our restricted expenditures, it's 50%.
So can you maybe explain how that correlates, if at all, with that pie chart? So what is the 77%, which is the salaries and the benefits? Because those numbers don't add up. I think that's what
Correct.
Trustee Cervantes is asking about.
Oh, so we add the certificated salaries, the classified salaries, and the employee benefits, all of those three together. We take that and we divide it by our total combined expenditures of the 282 million, and that gives us the 77%. Does that?
And so then how is the 83% and the 50% calculated?
So
I guess should we even compare these two the percentages, or are they two completely different calculations?
So the 83%, if we go to the unrestricted slide, the salaries and benefits there, they're combined. I didn't break it down from certificated and classified and benefits, but that number, that 162.9 million, if we divide that by the total unrestricted expenditures, that's what gives us the 83%. And the same for the restricted. When we take that amount versus the total amount for restricted, gives us that other percentage.
Does that make sense, Trustee Cervantes?
It does, but to me, it should say 83%, not
So-
77%.
No, so correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that this note on the bottom that reflects salaries and benefits, it's telling us the breakdown of how much of those funds are coming from unrestricted and restricted funds.
Got it.
And then when we look at the pie chart, it's telling us when we compare salary and benefits to the rest of our expenditures, which is 100% and includes both unrestricted and restricted funds, only 77% of that is for salaries and bucks.
I didn't see the fine print.
Okay.
I'm a total man, so I got tunnel vision, so I just saw 77% and I was fixated on that.
Oh, okay.
And I was saying, where did she come up with 83%? But I see it on the bottom in the fine print. Thank you.
So is that clear though?
It is.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other
Thank you.
questions or comments? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. If there's nothing further, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
I heard a motion from Trustee Solis, and I heard a second from Trustee Sellers. We'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Cervantes?
Yes.
Trustee Kerfan?
Aye.
Just kidding. Trustee Sellers?
Yes.
Trustee Solis? Yes. President Singh?
Yes.
And I will also register a yes vote. Thank you very much for that presentation. We move on to item 2, adopt resolution number 2425-06 to establish appropriations, which is the GAN limit. Assistant Superintendent Iqbal.
All right, so administration is recommending the board to adopt a resolution to establish the GAN limits.
Okay, and as a reminder, this item typically follows the unaudited actuals.
Yes, once we do the calculation for the unaudited actual, the last form, it calculates the GAN limit. So that's how it works.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the public?
No comments at this time.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? What are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve?
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Kerfan. I have a second by Trustee Sellers. I will take a roll call vote. Trustee Cervantes will be absent for this vote. Trustee Kerfan?
Aye.
Trustee Sellers?
Yes.
Trustee Solis?
Yes.
President Singh?
Yes.
I will also register a yes vote, so motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 absent. We move on to item 3, approve revised board policies. Superintendent Davis.
Thank you. These policies return to you for any adjustments or recommendations prior to acting on them. I do want to point out Board Policy 6173. We did, after discussion, align the language within the changes of that policy. You'll see the title of it now, Education for Children Experiencing Homeless. If you look at the attachment, you will see that is the language used to define the population that this policy covers. Other than that, we do recommend them for your consideration.
Thank you. Comments from the public?
No comments at this time.
Comments or questions from the board? Trustee Kerfan?
One comment, Vice President Carrillo. I just want to thank you, Superintendent Davis, for making that change at board request for the language on Board Policy 6173. No student chooses to be homeless, so it's important to make that distinction that they are experiencing a temporary issue, not a permanent part of their identity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from the board? What are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Sellers. I have a second by Trustee Kerfan. I'll take a roll call vote now. Trustee Kerfan?
Aye.
Trustee Sellers?
Yes.
Trustee Solis?
Aye.
President Singh?
Yes.
I will also register a yes vote. Motion carries 5-0 with 2 absent. We move on to action item 4, approve bid schedule and award for Central High School Ag Barn site improvements. We have Director Rodriguez.
Thank you, Board President, Vice President, and Board of Trustees and Superintendent Davis. Tonight, this item returns to the board for the award of the Ag Barn Site Improvements Project for Central High School's ag facility. If you look at your attachment, bids were opened on September 4th. The bid tabulation results appear to be very competitive. The additive alternate is for security enhancements on the site that would benefit the district. Mark Wilson Construction is the lowest bidder. Even though Mark Wilson provides construction management services, they are also a general contractor with a B license, which allows them to bid on public works. Just for clarification, the delivery method for this project is a hard bid, also known as a traditional bid. The industry calls it a design bid build, where the architect designs, various general contractors bid on the project, and the general contractor builds the project. So it's design bid build. Administration is recommending that the board award this contract to Mark Wilson, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any comments from the public?
No comments at this time.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion
Second.
by Trustee Kerfan. I have a second by Trustee Solis. Give me 1 second. I'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Kerfan?
Aye.
Trustee Sellers?
Yes.
Trustee Solis?
Yes.
President Singh?
Yes.
And I will also register a yes vote. Motion carries 5-0 with 2 absent. We move on to item 5, approve the sale and disposal of surplus obsolete district property. We have Assistant Superintendent Iqbal.
So administration is recommending the board to approve the sale and disposal of surplus and obsolete district properties.
Thank you. And this item is returning from our last agenda as previously information. Is there any comments from the public?
No comments at this time.
Any comments or questions from the board? We have a question from Trustee Sellers. Or comment.
It's question on the last page. We have 2 buses listed. I know in order to get some grant approval, we've had to destroy buses, get rid of them. Is that something that we plan to look towards again, or?
Yes, if we get more grants, then we'll do that. Same thing, crush the buses. So
Would these buses be something we would hold on to get rid of later under that provision?
I think these buses are so old that we just have to get rid of it. It's
Okay.
very,
All right.
Hearing no other questions, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I'll second that. I'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Cervantes?
Yes.
Trustee Kerfan?
Aye.
Trustee Sellers?
Yes.
Trustee Solis?
Yes.
President Singh?
Yes.
And I will also register a yes vote. Motion carries 6-0 with 1 absent. We move on to our final action item for today's agenda. Item 6, approve revisions to Governance Handbook. Superintendent Davis.
Thank you. Per request, I bring to you the governance handbook that on April 9th, revision was made on page 11 of that document under governance protocols, specifically board representation on interview panels. The change was made. We have been following that practice, but the last paragraph could benefit from clarification, so we make sure that we're following in the wishes of this group. There was question from the minutes of a prior discussion on April 9th. We did look to make sure we had not made an error, but I believe the question was in relation to what you see in red. We did not have it in the motion, but we understand that we did have notes that was in discussion. So I've added it there, not to say that is what is the wishes of the board, but definitely to register some of the conversation from April 9th. We are requesting direction and action to change this, as we do have applications and interviews in place. So.
Thank you. Any comments from the public?
No comments at this time.
Any comments, questions, or discussion by the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the proposed revision. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Trustee Cervantes. We'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Cervantes?
Yes.
Trustee Kerfan?
Aye.
Trustee Sellers?
Yes.
Trustee Solis?
Yes.
President Singh?
Yes.
I will also register a yes vote. Motion carries 6-0 with 1 absent. That'll conclude, thank you very much. That'll conclude our action items for tonight's agenda. We move on to information items. Our first item is received report on school climate survey. We will be hearing from Assistant Superintendent Dr. Lopez.
Good evening, Board President Singh, Vice President Carrillo, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Davis. Today I will provide you with the community engagement report in this informational item. The Panorama platform is used in our district to survey our students, families, teachers, and staff in order to allow our district and staff to better understand the social, emotional, climate and culture, engagement, and safety needs in our district. The survey provides a panorama, through the Panorama platform, are research-based and have been normed nationally for accuracy and relevance. The community engagement tool that was used to gather this data was drafted and vetted by the Community Engagement Tool Workshop. The work group selected specific questions that are addressed in this report. They are going to be highlighted throughout the presentation, and there's going to be 2 different forms that will be presented. One of them is through the average of responses that were in the survey, and the other one is not provided with averages because it is not a Likert scale. So since this was revised in 2023, the data presented will serve as a baseline for our district. And as you can see there, you have also the details as to when this is provided to our groups. The Panorama survey provides multiple opportunities for us to examine the data and provide opportunities of growth for our district and examining the professional well-being, capacity, and efficacy, professional learning opportunities, cultural competencies and awareness, as well as to measure the school climate and culture. As you can see, it also ties into our academic blueprint by looking at the inclusive classrooms where everyone is treated with respect and feels welcomed. So as explained, the community engagement tool focuses on attention on specific questions that were selected by the committee. And since the survey changed once again, this is going to be used as baseline. You will see there the percentages next to those topics, and those are the frameworks or the topics within the survey
that were analyzed. We will start with the family survey. Family engagement was measured at 45% average responses, and school fit was at 62% for our district. Those questions that you see in front of you were part of the questions that were selected by the committee. When we look at roles and responsibilities, this is the one question that I mentioned is not a Likert scale type of question, so that is why it's grayed out. Instead, it's a nominal scale, so it's looking at the selection that they chose. So 50% of those individuals selected primarily the school is principally responsible for ensuring good communication between the home and school, and 36% selected the parents. A highlight for this here is that administrators were rated very highly when it comes to respecting the children at their schools. When we look at barriers to engagement, we had 83% of favorable responses, which is pretty high. And the highlight here was that our families report that they experience few barriers to engaging with their child's school. The questions selected around school safety, we experienced 69% of favorable responses when you look at the average for all these questions. When it comes to family-school communication, we experienced 62% of favorable responses, with the highlight of nearly 3 out of 4 families feel comfortable in communicating with their child's school. When we are looking at student needs, we have 67% of favorable responses. And now we are going to start looking at the staff survey responses. What you see in front of you right now is the percentage of favorable responses for each of those topics or domains. Again, roles and responsibilities is nominal, is not Likert, so that is why you're not going to see a percentage. School climate, 65% favorable response overall. Our staff rated their leadership pretty highly. So it's 69% favorable responses in regards to how they view the leadership at their schools. So the highlight is the highest areas of strengths are related to staff feeling confident about their leaders and respectful relationships. When we look at the teacher survey, these are the percentages for each of the domains. Teaching efficacy was one of the highest rated ones. Educating all students, 62 favorable responses, percent of favorable responses. School climate was rated at 61% average. Staff-family relationships, 64% average. A highlight that we noticed was that the highest areas of strength are related to staff feeling confident about their leaders and respectful relationships, which correlates with the staff survey as well. Teaching efficacy, again, was rated at the highest for favorable responses with 83%. And if we look at the roles and responsibilities, 71% of the staff or the teachers felt that primarily the school is responsible for the communication between the home and the school. 22% was parents. Now we will transition to student feedback. You will see that this data will be broken up into 2 separate data components. One of them is for students in the lower grades, 3rd through 5th, and then you will notice the 6th through 12th grades are in a separate. So for school climate as a district overall, average percentage is 40% of favorable responses. And you have them split into the 6th through 12th and 3rd through 5th because the surveys are different. Regarding school safety, 55% of students responded across the average of all these questions was 55%. favorable responses. The highlight here is that the highest areas of strength are related to higher percentages of students feeling like they will not be bullied online for both groups, both the secondary and primary groups, compared to the non-favorable percentages. Also, teacher respect towards students was rated pretty high. Teacher-student relationships was one of the highest favorable responses at 81% averages. Sense of belonging was 43%. You have the surveys available to you if you would like to view them here. And also as an attachment, you received a report that looks like this. And this goes over the whole panorama survey. Again, this presentation was just the community engagement tool. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. Any comments from the public?
No comments at this time.
Any comments or questions from the board? Okay, I'll ask a question just for purposes of clarification, so I understand this information correctly. When we look at the teacher survey, and it says teaching efficacy 83%, and we're looking at the two questions. One of the questions is, how confident are you that you provide rigorous standards based on instruction for each of your students? And then the second, which is based on roles and responsibilities. So the teaching efficacy, I read the question out loud, but that's whether the teachers themselves think that they are in fact providing rigorous. I can't think off the top of my head, but do we have anything similar, or can you, and maybe this is outside of this presentation, so if it is, just tell me and we can discuss it another time, how accurate this is? So I think, generally speaking, one of the biases that we tend to have is that we do much better than we're actually doing. And I know when we've talked about the TNTP audit, am I remembering the acronym correctly? Mm-hmm. What our teachers rated versus what our students were feeling versus what was actually being seen in the classroom was different than the teacher rating, and not in a positive way. Do we have anything to measure whether this is in fact accurate?
So as of now, this specific report just covered the questions that were selected by the committee. But if you look at teacher efficacy, there's a lot of research around the fact that if our teachers feel confident, that means that they feel like they are provided with the right tools to be successful in the classroom. So there is a correlation with that in research, if you think of research. In regards to our questions, I would have to look a little more deeply to understand if the student survey actually has that question. I can look that up and provide that information for you.
Yeah, and you know, quite frankly, as you repeat that back to me, I think I'm more interested in knowing truly in the classroom, is this happening? Because I think students aren't going to be in any better position to gauge whether their teaching is teaching at standard grade level or challenging them above, right? So maybe it's a matter of there's another way to measure that and not appropriate for this survey.
Well,
Okay.
there is a question that actually correlates, and our students, you're right, it's a perception.
Right.
So perception of students and how they feel in the classroom is very important, and it's actually a very highly researched topic. And that is question number 8. If you look at grades 3 to 5, how often do your teachers seem excited to be teaching your class? And if you look at the favorable responses there, we are in about 60-some%, and these are our little ones. And if you look at the upper grades, that drops, right? So it does, that is probably an area that we want to look at and see how can we get better at that. Because if our kids feel welcomed and they feel excited and they see it in their teachers, then obviously they feel like they're there and they're ready to learn.
Dr. Boatwright.
Trustee Carrillo, so I just wanted to add, so that high level of teacher self-efficacy, very, very important, as Dr. Lopez says, based on the research. But what we need to do now is we need to see that translate into our students' academic outcomes. And that's where there's a disconnect right now. So when we're looking at what we're doing in Central Unified as far as providing professional development opportunities, working with our teachers to help them meet the really diverse needs of our students that are just coming in. Their needs are getting greater and greater. And so that's something that we're working on is that translation of that feeling of self-efficacy, which is so important, because if you think you can, you can, right? And vice versa. But then we also now need to see those outcomes in our students.
Great, thank you. My other question is just more broadly speaking. So Dr. Lopez, you mentioned that we use, and correct me if I'm wrong, I understood that you said we use this survey to then look at our academic blueprint 3.0. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How else do we use the survey? What do we do with this information in addition to presenting it to us as a board?
So we do use it in various formats, and I actually have a list here for you. So one of the ways that it's used is our administrators review this data. I don't know if you noticed, one of the presentations actually highlighted that are panoramic data. So they review this data to look at attention areas that they need to focus on at the sites. We have our area administrators that review the survey's results with principals to offer support, resources, and accountability to our school sites. We have the positive behavior intervention specialist, supervisor, myself, as part of the student family services, and we look at this data to look at our tiered levels of support for sites, our safety needs, to be able to address some of these gaps, but then also to celebrate, right, if we are making growth in some of these areas. School psychologists review this data for SEL survey needs. The LCAP is also aligned to this survey. The larger comprehensive version with 190 questions vetted into the 3 different formats is reviewed by our team in alignment to the LCAP. We have accountability coordinators and site leaders team utilize the data to develop their school site plans. Special education teams use the social-emotional learning survey as a screening tool to be able to identify those areas. Our family outreach liaisons review the data, looking at opportunities to improve the outreach opportunities with families as well. And we use it to provide professional development to our FOLs. So as you can see, we have, the list goes on.
Okay.
Can I add one extra area with that? For our student cabinet, we look at it, and then I know our director, Grigsby, in our school site councils, DAC, DLAC at the district level, they use that information, and the parents are going through it to then understand what collectively has been reported, what was working, and what needs to be better.
Since I know she's in the room, and I always have the question in the back of my head, do we use this at all with any of the work that our director for diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Actually, that is the last bullet that I didn't read.
Okay.
It says, and our new director of diversity, equity, and inclusion will be using the data to monitor our improvement over time.
Awesome, thank you. One other question, the clarification between, we have a section for teachers and staff. Who is staff?
I believe that includes our office staff, our cafeteria staff, because we want the voices of all individuals. We all have different experiences.
Okay. Thank you. I know this is our baseline because we've changed the questions, or we've been more intentional about the questions selected and evaluating, but my recollection going back is that overall this sounds like a much more positive response from both our students, our staff, and our teachers as far as their the school climate and the teacher efficacy, and even the confidence in their leadership. And so I'm glad we're hearing that, and that's a matter of all the work that you all are doing, everyone that's in this room, and those of us, those individuals that are not. But I also just want to take the moment to also say thank you to our board, because I know it's been a difficult and hard conversation for us to really identify the areas where we're dedicated to improving and ensuring that we're providing our superintendent, all of our assistant superintendents, and our leadership at every level with the necessary resources to support our teachers, our staff, and particularly to better serve our students. So just want to thank everyone for all of the hard work that you're doing, including my colleagues. So thanks for this information. This is just an information item, so if there's no other, Trustee Kerfan.
Thank you. I do have some questions. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent. So I want to talk about the student survey portion, and obviously one of the factors that affects student achievement, regardless of how hard our staff and our administration is working, are the students' perception of the schools. Do they feel safe and do they feel welcome? And this section seems, by my perception, to be a little bit one of our weaker areas on here. So I would just like to know how, throughout this calendar year, we're going to be working with our students to talk to them, find out, why they don't feel safe at school, why they don't feel like they belong, why they don't feel that staff are connected to them, and how we can work about making them feel that those are true, that they are safe, and that they are welcome, and that we do care about them.
So I know right now we are working with our tiered levels of support. We are providing professional development and building the tools necessary within our intervention staff. But when you think of climate and culture of a school, it's not just an individual that makes it happen, right? It's a team of people. So that's what it's so important for our, when our sites use this data, to be able to evaluate their systems, because every school is a different community, and be able to come together to come up with ideas. And that's what we are there to do, to support them through that process. So we are providing professional development through our monthly meetings and our administrative meetings. We are building capacity in our intervention staff and looking at our tiers levels of support. But in addition to that, we are also looking at opportunities to engage the community in events this year. So we'll be examining some of those opportunities.
Thank you. And on the
Before your next question, sorry, Superintendent Davis just wants to add a comment.
I think Dr. Boatwright and I both were also thinking about Parsec, which is a new resource we have that's going to allow us during the year to follow up on these questions. So this is one point in time that students have given us information. Now that we see it, we have new questions about, well, what does that mean to you? We'll test it out. It pushes to each student's computer. That's a tool that allows us to gather, and they can text it, speak it, say it, record a video of themselves, so we can start to capture when we see something at 40%, will tell us more, why, what it would be something specific. That's going to help us in the interim, we believe. We're testing it out this year.
Thank you. And then I'd also like to ask you, when you follow up with students about how often they worry about violence in the schools, and this is something that they seem to not feel safe, about only half of them, 55%. If we can find out why they don't feel safe, if it's regarding, site-specific incidents like frequent fights, or not feeling safe because of, adults in their lives, or if it's part of a national trend in the news that we unfortunately often, even this past week, see. And that can help determine what path we take to making them feel safe. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And so with that concludes our first information item. We move on to our second, receive information regarding resolution number 2425-09, State Seal of Civil Engagement. Area Administrator Garrett.
Good evening, President Singh, members of the board, Superintendent Davis. In alignment with Assembly Bill 24, the California State Board of Education adopted the State Seal of Civic Engagement on September 10th, 2020. The California State Seal of Civic Engagement recognizes high school graduates who demonstrate civic excellence, including an understanding of the U.S. and California constitutions and the democratic system of government, have demonstrated excellence in civic engagement by working towards and advocating for meaningful solutions to a community or social problem, quality reflection of student activities and growth, and have peer and mentor testimony of relevant student civic activities. Beginning with this year's senior class, this is another opportunity to enable all students to have relevant, rigorous, and engaging learning opportunities. Such opportunities would enable students to understand that each student matters and belongs in our democratic society, and that they have the right and responsibility to use their learning and their skills to make the world and their community a better place. In addition to the resolution, I have attached the checklist which would outline the criteria that a student would need to meet to receive this distinction. These include productive academic progress towards graduation, completion of grade level history social science course requirements, participate in one or more informed civic engagement projects that address real world problems, demonstrate civic knowledge, skills, and dispositions through self-reflection, and exhibit character traits that reflect a civic mindedness and a commitment to positively impact the classroom, the school, the community, and/or society. Administration is excited to provide this opportunity and recognition to our students and is recommending that the resolution be placed on the September 24th agenda for action, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. If you guys will please let me know if there's public comment, otherwise I'll stop asking. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm excited to see this. This item will return under consent unless anyone is requesting action. Hearing none, it'll return under consent. Thank you. We move on to item 3, receive information regarding core and supplemental materials for elementary and secondary courses. Dr. Boatwright.
Thank you. So school staff have requested and reviewed these items for use this school year. These novels will be used for in-class instruction. So we have Restart that's been requested by Hernan Barstow. The Wild Robot has been requested for all elementary schools. Tuesdays with Maury for Pershing and Pathway, and then Homegoing for Justin Garza High School. So once these novels are approved, then they may be used by all school sites that, based on age appropriateness, of course. Some are secondary, some are elementary. So administration is recommending that this item be placed on the September 24th board agenda for action. I'm happy to answer questions, and I do have copies here if anyone would like to review these novels.
Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Solis? Mike, please.
All the materials have been reviewed and approved by the state?
Yes, they are on approved lists, and then they've also been reviewed by our staff.
Hearing no other comments or questions, any objection to having this return under consent? Hearing none, thank you. We move on to item 4, receive information regarding a public hearing and resolution number 2425-10, instrumental materials for Williams compliance. We have Director English.
Good evening, Board President, Vice President, Superintendent Davis, and Board of Trustees. Principals and departments are compiling information to verify that each student has a textbook as well as the needed consumable materials. Destiny is the textbook management system that is used by our Library Services Department and is providing reports that are grouped by teacher to verify that each student is receiving their instructional materials and checked out to them. The administration recommends that this item be placed on the board agenda for September 24th, 2024 to hold the public hearing and adopt resolution 2425-10 declaring sufficiency.
Thank you, Director English. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, this item will return under action. If we can have this listed as our first item since it is a public hearing, please. Thank you. We move on to item 5, receive information regarding revised board policies. Superintendent Davis.
Thank you. We have a cluster of board policies to bring to your attention that are receiving updates. I think we're going to start with Assistant Superintendent Collegian, and we'll go through the review of those.
Thank you. Yes, we'll begin with Board Policy Update 0410, titled Non-Discrimination in District Programs Activities. This particular board policy under new law AB 1078 requires a district policy prohibiting discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and bullying to include a statement that the policy applies to all acts of the governing board and the superintendent in enacting policies and procedures that govern the district. The second policy, titled Non-Discrimination in Employment, 4030, updated policy to reflect new law Senate Bill 523, adds reproductive health and decision-making as a form of prohibited discrimination embedded in this new policy. The next policy, Board Policy 4112.2, under certification. The regulation has been updated here with the assistance and governance of the Commission of Teacher Credentialing to issue statutory leave and a new section under early childhood education to issue them an emergency specialist permit for transitional kindergarten teachers in accordance with AB 210. also allows teaching of all subjects in self-contained transitional kindergarten classrooms for general education purposes. The next board policy under employee notifications, Series 411.2.9. This policy, in conjunction with the accompanying exhibit, adds employee notifications to number 1, homeless liaison services and training. The second one is for transfer coursework and credits for highly mobile students. 3, training of volunteers in regard to the administration for emergency for anti-seizure medication. And lastly, non-discrimination in offering of career and technical education programs. The next policy, titled Bargaining Units, Series 4140 through 4340. This prohibits the board to be in the Public Employment Relations Board to be in violation of the prohibiting against deterring and discouraging district employees or job applicants from becoming or remaining members of an employee organization. This is in accordance with the new law, Senate Bill 931. Also adds information about Senate Bill 1131, which extends the Safe and Home Address Confidentiality Program to employees who may face threats or violence or harassment from the public because of the employee's work for the district, and clarify language regarding information that should not be disclosed when an employee submits a written request for specified information to remain private. Almost done, I'm sorry. The next series is employee compensation, Series 4151 to 4351. This specific policy is updated to add for districts who are participating in the classified school employee summer assistance program, allows for eligibility for classified employees who may elect to have at least 10% of their monthly salary withheld and paid out during the summer recess for either 1 or 2 months to reflect the law in accordance with Assembly Bill 185. And lastly, Board Policy 4218, dismissal, suspension, disciplinary action, which prohibits the district from suspending, demoting, or dismissing a permanent classified employee who timely requests a hearing pending the outcome of the hearing. Thank you. I pass the baton off to Dr. Lopez.
Good evening. I have Board Policy 5117, Interdistrict Attendance. I want to make you aware that there were 2 options here, and we selected option 1. The policy is updated to reference new law, AB 185, which extends the School District of Choice program to July 1st, 2028, and to reflect the new law, SB 941, which authorizes a district to enter into an instructional collaboration agreement with another local educational agency to offer the same or similar courses and coursework to students from another LEA who have been impacted by teacher shortages, disruptions, or cancellations in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics classes, or dual language immersion classes. I do want to make you aware that we do have a process as to when we evaluate and how we evaluate anything that comes through our transfers office.
I have the last 5 tonight. So the first one is Board Policy 6141, which is Curriculum Development and Evaluation. This says that the district's curriculum shall be aligned with the district's vision and goals for student learning. Our board policies, academic content standards, the state curriculum frameworks, state and district assessments, graduation requirements, and then when necessary, also legal requirements. I also have Board Policy 6146.2. This is the Certificate of Proficiency High School Equivalency Policy. This is updated to clarify the distinction between a Certificate of Proficiency and a High School Equivalency Certificate. I have Board Policy 6162.8. This is research. This says that districts may not require a student to submit to a survey requesting personal student information without prior written consent by the student's parent or guardian. This prohibition applies to surveys and research conducted by third parties as well. I have Board Policy 6176. This is weekend Saturday classes. This policy has been updated to reflect authorized makeup classes for any type of absence. The policy also adds material regarding circumstances under which teachers cannot be assigned to work on a weekend. And then lastly, I have Board Policy 6200. This is for adult education. This policy has been updated to reflect the new law, AB 486, which repeals the authorization for districts in sparsely populated areas to participate in the adult education program administered by the County Office of Education. Now, for us in Central Unified, we do offer our own adult education program through class.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? I have a question. For Board Policy 4218, dismissal, suspension, disciplinary action, we cite to the Ed Code, and the revisions to the Ed Code, if I remember correctly, provide that a suspension, demotion, termination may be effective even after request for appeal, if it's done after 30 days and if we have an impartial hearing officer. Did we look at that language? I don't recall off the top of my head what our collective bargaining agreements provide, but if we haven't, can we just review that and perhaps cite to that specific language in the Ed Code?
Yeah, we'll review the CBA to make sure that's in accordance with the Ed Code.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll look at it too and follow
All
up.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have this item returned under action unless there's any objection. Okay. We move on to item 6, receive information regarding contract amendments with Verigy. Director Bott?
Good evening, Board. Board President Singh, Board members, and Superintendent Davis. At the June 13th, 2023 Board meeting, the Board approved the RFQ 2223017600. Since then, the Board has approved 3 additional grants through the CalShape program. On May 14th, 2024, the Board approved Amendment 2, which covered 2 grants for Central High School, one for HVAC and one for plumbing, totaling $514,735.98. The third and final grant was board approved on May 28, 2024, but the amendment for this grant is being presented tonight. This amendment will allow Verigy to complete the project scope within the awarded amount of $975,753.87. Administration is recommending this item be placed on the September 24th board meeting after I answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Sellers?
Can you remind me what the funding source is for this?
This is through the state, CEC specifically. I need to look to see where it's coming from the state.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, California Energy Commission, CEC.
Any other questions or comments? And if I remember correctly, this was a grant we had to apply for to receive, right? It's not just like state money that's available for all. Okay.
Yeah.
Any objection to having this return under consent? Okay, consent it is. Item 7, receive information for purchase of HVAC equipment for Roosevelt Elementary cafeteria.
Good evening again. The current HVAC unit at Roosevelt in the Roosevelt cafeteria has exceeded its useful life and requires replacement. While Roosevelt was modernized in 2018, the cafeteria HVAC system was not updated at the time. This request pertains specifically to the purchase of the replacement equipment. The new HVAC system is currently under review by DSA. Once approved, we will proceed with the necessary approvals and bidding process. The equipment cost is $99,775. It will be sourced from Sigler through a CMAS contract. This purchase was previously approved last year to be funded through the ESSER funding. Administration recommends this item be placed on the September 24th board meeting for action after I answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay. If there's no objection, this will return under consent. And this is based on previous allocation of projects, right, by the board. We identified and said this is a project we want to prioritize.
Yes.
Okay. We move on to item 8, receive information on the use of the Collegian Stadium by Western Band Association. We have Director Rodriguez.
Thank you again, Vice President Carrillo, Board President, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Davis. Tonight you're receiving information regarding a facilities usage request that my department received for the use of Darren Collegian Stadium by the Western Band Association. Pursuant to Board Policy 1330, the Darren Collegian Stadium facility use requests for outside entities are required to go to Board for approval. A brief history about Western Band Association is that it was formed in 1979 to create a competitive performance opportunities for students in Northern and Central California. It is the organization's intent to educate, encourage, and reward the training that strengthens the development of musical and visual skills. Since its inception, the association has expanded to schools in Southern California. Over the past several years, bands have come far away, as from the states of Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah to share in this experience. This year, our students from Central East and Justin Garza High School will be competing for championships with other school districts. Justin Garza High School is a member of the Western Band Association. Administration is recommending that this item be placed on the September 24th, 2024 board agenda for approval. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Trustee Sellers?
If I'm reading this correct, this is for a 2-day event?
That is correct.
And then I just wanted some clarification on the costs associated with this. Is this under custodial staff, $3,360? Is that a normal price for this, for custodial work?
Yes, that's based on our it's calculated from our exhibit. Yes.
Just for my own information, what do those fees cover?
It covers the direct costs that we incur. So for the custodial hours, the time, the cleanup. So there's 2 hours before the setup, and then 2 hours after to break it all down and clean up for the next day for our students.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Solis and then Trustee Cervantes.
Are they going to be charged
Your mic, please.
Are they going to be charged the for-profit organization rate or the non-profit organization rate?
The non-profit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Trustee Griffon?
Vice President Creel, so if our Central East and Garza students if this tournament was not to be held at Collegian Stadium, we would likely have to pay for them to travel to wherever it would be, correct?
You're correct.
Okay, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Any objection to having this return under consent, or do we need it under action? Okay. Consent it is. Thank you. Item 10, receive information regarding Justin Garza High School Aquatics Complex Project, deductive charge order from BPK Architect. Director Rodriguez. Deductive.
Did we miss?
Yeah, we skipped number
9.
Did
I skip one?
Yeah, I think so. Number 9?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Receive information regarding DSA inspection services for Central High School Ag Barn site improvement. Director Rodriguez.
Thank you again, Vice President. For your information tonight, the district has received a proposal from Mr. Jim Dahl for DSA inspection services that are required by the California Building Code for the Ag Barn project at Central High School. Mr. Dahl has previously provided inspection services for Fresno and Madera Unified School Districts. Mr. Dahl lives in Fresno. Administration is recommending that this item be placed on the September 24th, 2024 for on the board agenda for approval. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have for this.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, since we have to retain services for this purpose. Any objection to having this return under consent? Okay. Now we move on to item 10, receive information regarding Justin Garza High School Aquatics Complex.
Yes, thank you again. For your information tonight is a deductive change order from the design professional for the Justin Garza High School Aquatics project for your review. The decrease in the to the project is due to an impact implemented after this project was originally bid. This item is for one of the events that occurred there, and staff has reviewed and recommends that this item return to the board on September 24th, 2024 for action. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments from the board? So if we're approving reducing a deduction, getting money back from architect. Okay.
Just for this particular issue.
And it's because the drawings did not show insulation under the roof decks. So we still have to get that work done, though.
The work has been completed.
Okay. Okay.
And in the future, very near future, I'll come back with a series of them. But for this one here, it's been sitting in my in my inbox, so I wanted to bring it to board.
And it's ready to be resolved. Any objection to having this return under consent? Okay. Since we're getting money back, I didn't think so. Item 11, receive information on Justin Garza High School Aquatics Complex project change orders for bid packages 5 and 9. Director Rodriguez.
Yes. So thank you again. So this is an information item. Our change orders for the multi-prime packages 5, 5 and 9, and the attachments of the itemized summary for Justin Garza Aquatics project for your review. Again, the increase is due to the impacts implemented after this project was originally bid. Staff has reviewed along with the construction manager and recommends that this item return to the board on September 24th, 2024 for action. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on this one.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay. I do. So just for clarifications, for change order 4, we required the fabrication of 4 new DF rails. So is this our responsibility, or is this one of our contractors that failed to identify the need for this?
So this is kind of an omission on the drawings. The DF stands for drinking fountain rails. So they're required by the building code to actually have those, and where they had them, they just didn't meet the accessibility requirements. So this had to go back, and obviously there's a change on the contractor's end.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then item 9, or change order 10, I'm sorry. So project 9, change order number 10.
Yep.
Can you just help me understand what the distinction is between these two? Because what I envision doesn't seem to be consistent with what's listed.
They're health department requirements. So the health department is actively involved in all of our projects. So what they do is before the project is even after the project is bid, they will want our drawings. So they go through the drawings to see whether or not there'll be changes. Mind you, this is after the bid. So then, any changes that the health department makes that are different from the drawings, they end up in change orders. As we go through construction, they come out again, especially for the aquatic center, because they wanted to see all the piping coming up into the pool. They wanted to see, once that was covered, they want to take some water samples. They go back into the snack bar, look at the heights of, and it matters who you get from the health department. Sometimes it's not always the same person. So the heights of the fiber reinforced walls, if it's not to their liking, they'll say, it needs to be 10 foot all the way around. So it just matters on who they send out. We always request that they bring the same person that actually initially comes out, but it never really materializes. So we're at the mercy of the health department.
Thank you. So I think FRP stands for something related to fiberglass of some sort.
Yeah, it's
okay.
a washable, clean surface to clean. What they do in kitchens, it's normally found in kitchens. It's that white, textured, shiny finish that's applied to our walls.
Okay. So I think my misunderstanding is the fact that we need that in the snack bar doesn't mean it's being applied or being installed to the windows. Those are two separate things.
Those are, yes.
Got it. Thank you. That
You're
was
welcome.
my
Okay.
mistake. Trustee Grufon.
Thank you, Vice President Creel. So I just want to go back to those drinking fountain rails. You said those are required by the state?
Yes.
In that case, why were they not included originally?
They were included, they were just in the wrong location.
Why were they in the wrong location?
The drawings, for some reason, they just put them in the wrong location, and then when we start to build, and the drinking fountain, is set, they come back with the railing, and they'll say, okay, well, the railing doesn't fit in this location, so then they have to be modified.
Okay.
Everything has to be ADA compliant.
I understand, and I
Right.
definitely appreciate that we should be ADA compliant.
Right.
I'm just noticing a unfortunate trend of many change orders regarding the aquatic complex because designs did not meet ADA compliance, state regulation, what was needed didn't happen, and then we have to have a lot of change orders because of that.
Yeah, if you look at the overall, we're still under 4%, kind of industry standard with schools. That is really good. We're still in good shape. We're about ready to close this one out. So when I come back again, I probably would come back with the last change orders.
My ask then is that if you come with the final change order, can you share with us how many total change orders were presented to the board
Absolutely.
regarding the aquatics complex? Thank you.
I can do that.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, any objection to having this under consent? Consent it is. Number 12, receive information. Yes, I'm on the right one. Receive information on Justin Garza High School Athletic Complex, Inc. 1 project change order for bid packages 7 and 9. Director Rodriguez.
Thank you again. This is again for information and the change orders and the attachment summary for the bid package for the multi-prime contractors, work packages for the Justin Garza Athletic Complex, increment number 1 for your review. The change orders are changes for work not included in the original contract scope and are necessary to complete the project. I want to, before we dive into it and before I open it up for any questions, I found an error, and it has to do with the responsibility for change order 2 for the fencing. That is an omission by the architect, and I inadvertently, by mistake, put it under district added a scope of work to the contract. That is something the architect erred. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on this one too.
Thank you. We like that type of error correction. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay. If there's no objection, under consent, and then you'll revise this change order so that it reflects that that was the responsibility of the architect.
I will.
Okay. Thank you very much. We move on to item 13, and our final information item for tonight. Receive information on change order for testing inspection services for Shields and Brawley Elementary School project. Director Rodriguez.
So thank you again for your information. The district has received a change order to extend the material testing and laboratory services that are required by the California Building Code for Shields and Brawley Elementary School. During construction, there were unforeseen issues that required additional testing beyond the estimate. Items related to the increase are but not limited to existing soil conditions, in-shop steel and welding inspections that were conducted at the steel plant where the steel for the buildings were being fabricated. It required day and after-hour evening shifts to keep the current project schedule. Reinspection services for high-strength structural bolting that was required by DSA's field engineer from Sacramento when he came out to visit the site. Material items such as packaging, storing of bolts, washers, nuts, to fasten the steel members together, and additional torque testing for those fasteners were also required to be inspected. This is in addition to the initial estimate. The original contract amount was based on a good faith estimate of the services necessary to provide inspection and testing for the subject project. However, the actual services are subject to the schedule and progress of the contractor. And we and are outside of Salem, the laboratory's control. This change order covers the materials and testing inspection services required as necessary to complete the project. In that regard, and I would like to say that our multiple prime contracts, the district's contracts to the prime contractors, allows the district to recoup these costs for activities that are outside the scope of the initial proposal due to these items. So in essence, it would be like the aquatics. A while back, I kind of brought one here, and I went back to the contractor and recouped some of those costs. So we do have it in our boilerplate, but we need to finish the project. So administration is recommending that this item be placed on the September 24th, 2024 board agenda for approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, so to clarify, the change order of $157,640, we're going to recoup all of it, or we plan to ask nicely based on the contract, we deserve a reimbursement?
Well, that's
and we'll
typically the way it happens.
Okay.
I will ask for all of it, but then they'll say, then we'll have to come to some
Got
sort
it.
of compromise.
Okay. Understood. Any other questions from the board? It's a required expense. Any objection to having this returned under consent? Okay, this will come back under consent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Rodriguez. We move on our agenda. Advanced planning, the 12-month calendar is attached. Additional information and closing comments. Any requests for information or items on the board? Trustee Kirfan, other than the one provided by Trustee Solis.
Vice President Correa, I think I heard President Singh, so we'll let him go first.
Okay, President Singh?
Sure, thank you. So I would like to actually have two items come in the next 2-3 months for information. Assistant Superintendent Lopez in her, Dr. Lopez in her presentation talked about dual immersion. I know dual immersion has been an ongoing conversation, and I know that we have a kind of a broad interest. So I would like an item sort of to think about what that could look like. Like, what would we need to put in place if that's something we were interested for the 2025-2026 school year. In addition, I would like an information item also for consideration. We know soon to pass will be AB 3216, limiting like a policy where school boards will be mandated to come up with policies to limit cell phone usage on campus during school, like during instructional hours. So I'd like us to have an information item to sort of think about what would be a policy that our district would like to pass so that we could actually be ahead of the curve. Thank you.
Thank you, President Singh. Is there any objection to these items? Is there general consensus to have these items returned? Okay, hearing no objection. Trustee Kirfan?
Thank you, Vice President Creo. I just ask that we adjourn tonight in memory of the 4 victims, the 2 students and 2 teachers that were killed last week at Appalachia High School in Georgia.
Okay, thank you. We also had a request from Trustee Solis with respect to some of the concerns that have been raised with Tilly and an info item. Teague, I'm sorry. Teague. Is there any objection to having an information item on that? Okay. Thank you. With that, our next meeting for the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is September 24, 2024, beginning at 6 p.m. for closed session, 7 p.m. for public session. We do not need to adjourn to closed session. And so with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Sellers. I have a second by Trustee Kirfan. We'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Cervantes? Yes. Trustee Kirfan?
Aye.
Trustee Sellers? Trustee Solis? President Singh?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. We adjourn at 9:31.